None of the following should be taken as business, investment, legal, or tax advice. Enjoy the podcast. Hello and welcome to the SwapSpace Huddle podcast. I am Turpal, your lovely host. Today we are joined by Bradley Peak. He was our second ever guest on our audio podcast, back when it was just audio, but now we are on video and we are ready to roll. Bradley, word to you.
Well, I'm pleased to be here. It's probably the first time I've been on video since I did the SumSub stuff, so a lot of your users might recognize me from the SumSub YouTube channel, obviously without the beard. I guess at the moment, my main role is the lead learn writer at Cointelegraph, so one of their journalists. So I cover pretty much everything crypto. I also work as a crypto advisor for a range of different projects, ranging from, say, Symbiosis, which is a cross-chain liquidity protocol, I'd say, a sort of AMM DEX, and then I go all the way through to sort of business development and strategy for certain Web3 companies. I've traveled the world, been to loads of different conferences. I'm a research analyst for CoinsPaid, cryptoprocessing.com. So yeah, I do a range of different things, and I'm also a media host, so I'm on the Cointelegraph channel and things like that. Yeah, but today, obviously, I'm here with you, Turpal, my good friend, to answer your questions about crypto, the wonderful space. Obviously, I get an insider look at some of this stuff, so really excited to chat.
Yeah. Same here. I've been waiting for this podcast entry for a long time right now because it has been a very long time coming.
Yeah.
There were a lot of holidays and New Year's, and we kind of missed out on some stuff back when it was still hot, like quantum computing, for example.
We planned to do it for ages. I remember when Willow came out, we were like, let's do the podcast. Willow.
So yeah, my first question would be about this latest breakthrough and innovation in technology, which is quantum computing, and Google coming out with Willow. I mean, the news kind of died out right now, but I still do think that there is some merit to that technology itself. And I wanted to ask what you think about it. Is it a threat to blockchain? Will it ever be a threat at all to anything?
Yeah, well, I think people are worried about Willow because it represents this era of quantum computing. And obviously it would break Bitcoin having a quantum computer, because you would essentially have one miner that would be able to solve all of the blocks, kicking all the other miners out of the pool of miners. And that means there would be complete centralization, and the n bits would be through the roof, so the difficulty rating of mining.
Yeah.
But I think more people are concerned about it because I suppose if you have a quantum computer, it's able to actually crack, say, SHA-256, and
easily.
a lot of the sort of wallet encryptions as well. So with something like quantum computing, you'd actually be able to hack someone's wallet much easier. And so it breaks a lot of the standard encryption methods. But it's not too much of an issue, because we actually have this kind of race between quantum computing itself and quantum cryptography too.
Yeah.
So I suppose a lot of adaptable networks, like Cardano, for instance, that can sort of hard fork natively, they're actually probably able to implement a high level of quantum resistant cryptography into their programs, which means that wallet addresses wouldn't be hacked so easily. There are two things to be said. First of all, it's pretty dangerous, but also with quantum computers, you can create these kinds of algorithms that, in and of themselves protect against those threats. So, I mean, Willow's really cool. It means we're entering a new age, but it probably also means that the death of Bitcoin is coming. I know a lot of people disagree with me on this, but I just think...
I disagree with you on that too, I gotta say.
Well, I think the issue is you would have to have some kind of hard fork of Bitcoin, right? So you would have to get 51% approval in the network to have those sort of major upgrades, which I think is really impossible because Bitcoin is so decentralized.
But wouldn't you say that people would just gather, that 51% would just gather and say, hey, we don't want to lose our assets, let's do the hard fork?
Well, I don't know, because Bitcoin, it's not really very relevant to today. I mean, right, if you're sending a transaction to someone, what is the currency you use and the chain?
Anything but Bitcoin, probably stablecoins.
Right, stablecoin, which one?
Anything that has to do with a USD at the beginning.
Yeah, so probably USDT, right? Because it's the most liquid stablecoin out there.
Yeah,
Some people use USDC, but so you get paid in USDT, right? You're transacting in USDT. Now, you're probably doing that on a really fast chain like Tron, like USDT Tron, right? You're not doing it in Bitcoin. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, because you don't have volatility with the USDT.
Well, not quite. I mean, it probably takes an hour right now to confirm any
the transaction speed too,
on the
of
Bitcoin
course.
network. So you're probably not going to be transacting because it's going to be taking too much time.
Mm-hmm.
Also, it's going to be incredibly expensive because it's sort of a network designed almost like I would say like a crypto test net. I don't think it's really designed to be used nowadays. Like, people don't get paid in Bitcoin really. People aren't spending Bitcoin. You obviously have notable instances like in El Salvador where it's legal tender or something, and you have a lot of Bitcoin ETFs that are really investment geared. But yeah, that's the ultimate idea. We're using stablecoins. Why? Because they're faster, they're newer, they run on better chains, and
you won't have a danger of the price of the coin dropping while you're waiting for that transaction to finish.
I mean,
even if it is on a fixed rate.
Yeah, Bitcoin's interesting because it is volatile, but it's one of the more relatively stable coins. I mean, you always have something called altcoin season, which is after Bitcoin's price spike and dramatic drop, or whatever it is. You will actually have altcoin growth, which is interesting. So they tend to be more volatile than sort of legacy currency.
Yeah, it's funny how essentially any other altcoin is dependent on the price of Bitcoin. Why do you reckon that is?
I think a lot of people still don't understand the crypto market. They don't understand that Bitcoin is like a museum crypto piece that's not designed for mass adoption.
A museum crypto piece?
That's what I'd say. It's like a museum piece. And that's why I don't think they'll actually upgrade their consensus to be quantum resistant, ultimately.
Yeah.
Because I think it will stay as an example of the very first chain, and it will almost be like a museum coin. It will become like a meme, because ultimately Bitcoin doesn't really have any real utility. I mean, sure, it has these supply side dynamics, like deflationary mechanisms. You have the halving, obviously, and things,
but nothing special apart from.
Well, you don't have any utility.
Else.
I mean, what can you use Bitcoin for? Like, if you can buy pizza that will take you an hour to transact it, and it costs you $3 in transaction fees. No, but I think that's the truth about Bitcoin. As soon as more people understand how easy it is to use these sort of new, quick, fast currencies, something like Ton, for instance, is a perfect example. As soon as people on their Telegram app starting using Ton as a sort of native cryptocurrency within the app, I think people are going to realize that there's no point transacting in Bitcoin, and obviously with that lack of demand comes the price drop as well. So I mean, I am a Bitcoin anarchist. I think I believe that combined, I think quantum cryptography is really going to be the nail in the coffin for it, but I don't see it being the cryptocurrency of the future. I think actually we're going to have these big CBDCs competing each other, much like in the forex markets.
And talking about CBDCs, you recently allocated a place for drafting a white paper for a Latvian CBDC, is what you told me, right?
That's interesting. Yeah. So I don't know if we had a conversation about this before, but recently...
Just mentioned it to me.
Yeah, so I've got a friend, really, with lots of contacts in the Latvian government, and obviously with Mika coming out, Latvia is going to be probably applying for a license, and a CBDC is something they're actively looking into. So I was actually asked to head the committee that's going to draft the white paper for a Latvian CBDC, and specifically how it could be used to fiscal benefit. So fiscal means sort of taxes, right?
Yeah.
Because the issue is right now we are in a cash economy. Sort of means that people are using banknotes that aren't sort of traceable by the system. For instance, in Russia they have this big problem, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if you know about this, but in Russia, a lot of people are paid a sort of fix that's registered and legal, and they can use it to show their income on certain statements and things. But then they're given a sort of bonus part that's just paid in cash. Now, and usually the cash part is much more than the actual fix.
Oh, okay.
And they do this because it saves the companies money. Obviously, you pay
less tax.
You pay less tax on this little part, and you can give them the rest so it keeps their incentive going. In the UK, this would be seen as, like, what are you doing with your economy? Yeah, because everyone's technically given the opportunity to evade taxes. They don't have to report their taxes, and everyone's doing it. And it's sort of really strange. I mean, as many of you know, I've spent a lot of time in Russia, and this is interesting. But then you think, well, how can they afford to pave their roads? How can they afford to, I don't know, keep the health service going, which is quite good in Russia, to be honest, the public health service.
It's free. Shout out to America.
And then you're also thinking, how can they fund this massive, campaign in Ukraine? Also, so that the tax coffers must be full, even though very few people are actually paying taxes. So how do they approach this problem? Do you know?
No, I had no clue.
So they need to essentially gather sort of more money from the general populace. Instead of taxing their income, they tax transactions in a hidden way through the banks.
Just like with blockchain transactions.
Kind of. Because you've got certain banks that are government owned, things like Sberbank or Tinkoff, right? They have large government interests. So
wait, those banks are government owned?
Partially government owned, yeah. So they have to sort of adhere to certain government regulations, and they're taxed hugely, by the government. And so what happens is those banks that people use every day, what do? Well, they technically impose is the right word. Fees per transactions, especially between banks. So oftentimes you're paying something like 3.5% just to send your money to an account of your friend. 3.5%. In England, you'd see 0% most of the time. It'd be very rare that you actually had some fees. Only really on international transactions via Visa and MasterCard.
I can see where you're going, because people wouldn't actually bat an eye on this.
No, not at all.
And they think like, it's just the transaction fee, whatever.
Yeah.
But they would probably pay even more in those transaction fees than they would pay as tax.
Yeah, it's why VAT kind of works, because you've got this huge 20% tax that people don't realize. Because if you really want to buy something, you're not thinking about whether it's overpriced or underpriced, really.
I see what you mean, because technically the VAT applies for the shop owners, for instance. So the price that you're paying for the product that you're trying to buy already has that VAT included.
Well, kind of. So you've got this additional, and because it's transaction levied, it's much more digestible to humans. So we don't try to avoid it, But the problem is with income tax. It's usually one big sum that you pay at the end of the month, and it's really not computed psychologically. So
it takes a bite out of you.
Yeah. So my idea really for this Latvian CBDC is to use it to control what I would see as a cash economy in Latvia.
Wow.
And you could do that by you could increase tax revenue by charging a large service fee per transaction made using their CBDC, right? That would be centralized and government owned, but without making it too inconvenient for the user, because it will still be cheaper and more convenient, which crypto is, than using cash and fiat currencies.
Yeah, I can see that. Kind of an example that I want to set is if I buy food like on a daily basis, I don't bat an eye on spending like $10-$20 on food. But if I had to do that like once a month and pay $300 for food, I'd probably be furious.
Exactly. Yeah. Imagine at the end of the month you think, I have to pay the food bill. People like things. I mean, for instance,
food bill.
You get subscriptions, right? When you subscription, you never go for the yearly one. Who goes for even though it's much cheaper, you never go for the yearly one, because we like to pay as we go. Yeah. And you can think of these little transaction pseudo taxes, as it were, as exactly that. So that's my idea, and I'm sort of currently assembling the committee for that. It's going to be a really interesting project. I don't know whether they'll take it or bite, but it's certainly going to be put on desks to the right people and discussed in the right rooms.
I can see that. But what if everything goes south? What if people don't agree to those small transactions? Because, as you said, in UK, if there were transactions for this, people wouldn't like it.
Well, they're already paying it. I mean, think about an economy like Latvia. All these sort of old Soviet-based economies actually follow very similar systems to how Russia's working. They're already paying these sort of 3.5%
they don't even
bank
know
fees.
about it.
They don't even know it. So imagine, actually, it could get to the point where revenue means that you don't actually need to tax income anymore. And imagine if you could say to someone, look, we're not going to charge you income tax, but you just have to pay a little more per transaction. And why this is especially good is because it is a sort of function that can fine-tune an economic indicator known as aggregate demand, right? Because you're actually, instead of, say, upping interest rates to 20%, you can simply control the fees on transactions, because if the transaction fees are higher, people spend less, which controls things like investment in the economy, it controls consumer spending, and these are all, I would say, vectors of aggregate demand, right? And you have increased aggregate demand, you have inflation, this is bad. So, instead of looking at things like interest rates to control the economy, which has adverse effects, like people don't sell their houses, or people don't buy the house, or people don't get credits on cars and things like that, and people save more, you can actually fine-tune these little transaction fees between sending CBDCs or even trading CBDCs for other altcoins or Bitcoin. And I think you will find that you will have a much better, efficient economy, or certainly an economy that could incorporate Web3, which I like.
Most definitely. And I think a way to incorporate that Web3 would be, that lack of high taxation would probably be a fertile ground for new businesses. Because you got people coming in, like in Georgia, for instance, the tax for businesses is basically non-existent. And the same can be applied here, because you have people coming in. Oh, look, this place is just so tax-free. It's like a tax haven. We got to go there in order to open our business there.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think it's mainly more important for the consumers, because businesses are very rigid. They calculate the tax. They always make the correct decisions because they're not emotional. Businesses aren't emotional, but humans are. If you go to the shop and you've got to buy cheese, right? You don't choose the cheapest cheese. You choose your favorite cheese. Right, it doesn't matter if it's gone up in price, right? Because you like that version of cheese and you don't want a different one. And ultimately, it's going to be the same. If I need to send money to someone, I see the fees, I click OK, and I forget about it, because I ultimately need to do something, and it's only possible through this route. That's my sort of spiel on CBDCs and what I'm planning to do. I mean, look, it's very early stages. It's completely hypothetical at the moment. We need to do a lot of analyses, but luckily I've got Vlad as well. I'm hoping to get Gunit Kwa as well, who's a colleague of mine from Cointelegraph. She's a PhD. She did a thesis on CBDCs actually to the committee too. So lots of interesting things in that direction. But it's something we should really look at, because I think instead, circling back to the main question, I think instead of Bitcoin, you're going to have very thought out central bank digital currencies.
Yeah.
CBDCs. You might not. A lot of people would be saying in the comments, but there's no decentralization in centralized currency. But I think a lot of people don't realize the statistics that actually.
Don't say that decentralization is a myth, please.
No. But what I think is a lot of people don't realize in the crypto sphere, I guess we have 7% crypto adoption.
Yeah.
Now, it sounds like a lot, right? But actually, only 1%, probably less than 1% of that 7% are using DeFi services.
Yeah.
So that means people that are doing yield farming, staking, cross-chain swaps, using bridges.
And everything else.
And sort of utilizing DEXs where they don't need their KYC, or sort of peer-to-peer trading, things like that. So it's actually 1% of that global adoption figure. So what is the other, 6 point whatever, not a mathematician, but what are the other
hard math there.
Yeah. I can't do it. Think fast, so it doesn't fit with my flow. So what are the other percentage of people doing? Well, they're using centralized services. Yeah,
because it's easier, and you don't have to dig your head into everything crypto to do it.
Exactly. So then, why wouldn't they use centralized cryptocurrencies that are faster? They're slightly cheaper as well. They're more convenient. They can be integrated into apps that everyone uses. For instance, imagine a CBDC that are integrated with WhatsApp, for instance. Yeah. And it's a really interesting time to be alive in crypto right now, because a lot of governments are experimenting with these kinds of things.
Yeah, China mostly.
Yeah, well,
China is the one that set the trend for CBDCs.
No, it didn't. No, it's the first one to try it, but that's not how you should do. Look, China's a very good case study when we're looking into CBDCs, but they did ban all other currencies. Yeah, that's the issue.
They also banned mining, and everything else. Trading crypto is also banned there, so you can also have a CBDC. But what can you do with it?
Yeah, essentially, which is why I would say that China is a very good case study, but it's not something to lead from. Maybe, I don't know what the expression is. Because we need to have a little bit of decentralization. You need to have a bit of grit in the.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Because a lot of things don't work with without the other. I mean, without fiat, you don't have crypto.
Yeah, and you also need to be able to trade CBDCs for other currencies that are more volatile, because that would also bring tax to the government in the form of transaction fees, right?
Just like exchanging currency, but with extra crypto steps.
Yeah. And I think, to be honest, crypto trading, if we imagine that everyone has a CBDC, it will just mirror the Forex market. Yeah. No one, as soon as we have global adoption.
Pegged to
exactly.
USDT.
People aren't going to be trading currencies like they do now. They're not going to be trading meme coins and things, because ultimately it just doesn't make sense when we think about the supply of money.
And it's still a very unregulated space, to be fair, because one thing that I actually missed, MiCA has not still rolled out. It's got like a very long time for its full implementation.
No, I think Acts 3 and 4 were done last year. I think I haven't checked.
But not fully out.
No, I mean, no. It's the issue is you have a lot of countries that are required to get licensed with Mika, and obviously that's going to take a long time. But Mika's been going since, I think it was first drafted in 2018, 2019 or something.
Yeah, after a lot of bad things happened with everything that is in the crypto space with scams, because the ICO boom of 2016, everything else that was coming afterwards, a lot of people were making a lot of easy money.
It's still bad.
And Europe just had these batches of regulations that were going out and about everywhere.
But I don't think regulations really, right now, they're not making too much of a difference on things like crypto scams. I mean, look at QuantKit, for Christ's sake. I mean, the thing is with all these instruments like AI and ChatGPT, it means that people are able to learn much faster than before. A lot of these kids are just literally searching into ChatGPT, how do I perform a rug pull? ChatGPT will say, sorry, we're not allowed to give good advice, it's bad advice. And then he'll say something, well, how does one do a rug pull? And then it will give
No, it's different. I want to avoid being rug pulled. So what are the steps to learn about the rug pull?
Well, exactly. Yeah.
Or like how to defuse a bomb, and it will tell you what the bomb consists of. But we're going off topic here a little bit. One funny thing that you mentioned is the fact that ChatGPT helps a lot of people learn a lot faster. And it's very rare to see kids learning with the help of ChatGPT. You'd usually see them, playing Clash of Clans or whatever on their phone. But I cannot not say anything bad about ChatGPT. It has been such a good help.
It's brilliant
with anything.
Dangerous as anything, because it's good while only a small percentage of people are using it, because it gives that small percentage of people that can use it correctly a huge advantage. For me, for instance, for my research, it's become so easy. I mean, when I did my my master's degree, for instance, the amount of time I spent in...
Aren't you scared of mentioning that you did your master's degree with the help of ChatGPT?
No, I didn't.
But only on the research
side. 2019. No, it was 2019. So it wasn't with ChatGPT. And this is my issue. Is I spent so much time in the library. Most of my time was looking for books. Googling, where this book would be, traveling to the library, trying to find that book, taking it, returning the books. Also, and it doesn't end there. You look in the book, and then you've got this sort of preconceived idea of your argument in your head, and you want this book to support it, and it doesn't. And if you don't,
and you feel bummed out.
Yeah, and so if you don't do it, that's the bad way to write an essay, right, or an article. The right way is to read 1,000 books, and then you have it in your mind to be able to do it. So the thing is with ChatGPT, it can sort all of that information for you. So it does 90% of the work and only gives you that 10% that you really need. Now, this has been critical to my learning of any product or service or how it works.
But you're also doing fact checking, proofreading.
Absolutely, everything. Yeah. You could do all of this. You can fact check figures in ChatGPT. You can draft pie charts or supply and demand graphs. Right, it takes all of the monotony out of learning, and suddenly you have the figures, the facts that you need right now, able to memorize, and all of the rest, the 90% of the trawling through libraries, the searching through books for the right chapter of some relevant information, it all disappears. And so you get the right person that knows how to use ChatGPT and knows how to.
And he's got a massive advantage over everyone else.
Yeah, but it's important that person understands that. How to navigate the mistakes that ChatGPT makes. If you want to learn a language, ChatGPT is massive.
Because you can talk to it now.
Well, you can, but not just that, but you would be able to send a voice message to ChatGPT in a different language, and ChatGPT would be able to error correct you, right? So imagine that
teachers are losing their jobs.
Well, not just that, proofreaders, translators.
Wow.
ChatGPT now translates texts in most languages better than actual translators, paid translators. So if you pay a translator, it might be $1,000 to do, 10,000 words worth of content. Actually, the rating of that translation, the correctness, the accuracy, the flow, all of these key indicators of a text would actually be better with ChatGPT. Do you know why? Because it's trained on published content. And
true.
And not only that, but popular published content. So it exactly knows what the reader is.
But it does kind of dial it down to that style of everything that is used mostly, because you have all these articles and all these books that ChatGPT reads, and it essentially mixes them all together and finds this flat line of everything that is the perfect medium between everything.
Well, which is why, I mean, look, I'm a writer, I'm a journalist. I use ChatGPT a lot. But I'm also a writer journalist for the top crypto publication in the world, so I can't be lazy and just use ChatGPT. Yeah. So what I do is I would use ChatGPT to create the bones, the structure, the skeleton, the sort of annoying, boring stuff that would take you hours to do. I would use ChatGPT to filter through some of the best and most relevant data, from for instance the past month, and that would save me 90% of the time of going through all of that data myself. And once I've got the data, the outline, I then write the sections individually one by one. I then get ChatGPT to proofread those individual blocks, again saving time, something that's monotonous and doesn't really use a lot of my processing power. And so really I'm dialing it down to something. Imagine the things that everyone can do. Everyone can create a structure, everyone can proofread, everyone can look for key indicators like coherence or flow or complexity or something. So I put all of those things that everyone can do, the boring things, things that take a lot of time, to ChatGPT, and the rest, that's sort of the creativity, the metaphors, the examples, things like that. I would also ChatGPT doesn't really know how to compare and contrast data. That's true. This is also something that you do. You get the data from ChatGPT, and then you would say corroborate that data or show contrast. And this is again something that you need to be trained in. And obviously you need to also be trained in different prompts. ChatGPT reacts much differently to different prompts. I mean, even if you're nice to it, it can actually offer you different prompts as well.
You gotta say please.
So having, for instance, I have maybe 10 to 15 prompts that I have saved, long prompts that I can at any moment upload to ChatGPT's memory, and it can work well for me.
Yeah, because it is like a genius, but it's like a child. You need to give it instructions, and the more instructions you give it, the better the outcome will be of any result that you want.
Not necessarily. A lot of the time, if you give too much, it will ignore certain parts. It's trained in this too. But okay, getting back to the point, AI still scares me because it's fine right now, because me and a small
not that
group
powerful.
People, we know how to use it, but when they end up teaching it in schools and everyone ends up using it, right, and everyone becomes good at researching and deliberating and writing articles, then the bar goes up, and then actually when everything turns into some mushy echo chamber of samey writing that's all been done through the same method, slop. Probably slop that I say meets the standards, right?
Yeah.
We have to somehow change the way we write, and then it's an issue, because if we change the way we write, ChatGPT is also going to know, and then it's going to make everything like that.
So it's constantly learning.
So ChatGPT has the ability to diminish individuality, creativity, flair in certain texts, and so I think it will go backwards. I think actually people will be using ChatGPT for things like structures, but actually the main creative flair will come from them,
as it should be.
Yeah,
because if you don't get that creative flair, then you have slop.
I know, but then what if ChatGPT will be able to give you that creative flair and do it better than you do? And these are the kinds of problems.
Well, that's the scary part.
Yeah, and AI is a whole other thing that I don't want to touch today. I'm a crypto Web3 specialist, but it's something that is very useful for me at the moment. I couldn't work without it.
Let me tell you the reason why I actually mentioned AI, because it's a very interesting thing to consider, and all the things that you can do with the help of ChatGPT and with the help of AI that creates videos for you. You can start a business and be like a one-man team that is providing like a really good product, only if you know how to do it well. But my connection here with the question about ChatGPT and AI is very closely tied to the blockchain technology and every AI project that you see on the space, because you get a lot of these AI projects that promise you, trading bots like that are fully automated, that will always try to give you profit and will always sell at the perfect time to not let you go down and lose your profits. And I kind of want to ask, I've never tried it myself because I'm heavily against trading for myself, because I realize that it's a very slippery slope, and if I do get addicted to it, it's going to be a very difficult time getting off of that. But what do you think about all these AI trading bots AI blockchain projects that offer a multitude of everything that was presented but never delivered.
You asking how is trading developing?
No, like AI in blockchain in general, but mostly these trading bots.
I think actually these are two different industries. They're completely separate, and I think they're being combined just to entertain Silicon Valley investors. I think for them the idea of something that combines two of the hottest trending industries is worth an investment, and I think that makes a lot of sense. It does, because these two industries are growing in parallel to each other. AI actually much faster than Web3, but I think that they're not as related as some people think. People talk about in the AI and blockchain industry. It's not an industry. These are two separate things.
Okay, that's a very interesting point, because I agree with that, and I think there is not going to be any good AI project in the Web3 space for a very long time, at least until Web3 blockchain space is developed to a certain point where it has like a certain standard, where it has good regulation, where it doesn't have this bad side, and it is not frowned upon by the majority of the people in the world. And I think that's going to be the way to go.
Can I ask you a question, just while I'm on the trading topic? What do you think would happen if suddenly everyone in the world was using AI trading bots? I can answer this with an example. If we were playing a chess game, if you were playing a chess game with ChatGPT or OpenAI, right?
Yeah.
OpenAI would win. It would probably be even Magnus Carlsen, right? So then the question is, what happens if you put AI against AI on the chessboard? Do you know what happens?
Yeah, it's going to be dialed down to a perfect medium, because no one would win.
Well, exactly. Well, usually
it's always going to be a draw.
It would be down to the advantage at the very, very beginning. For instance, white would always have an advantage, right? And so, you're right. It stabilizes it out. It would always be stable. And the same can be said with trading. If suddenly AI is doing all of the trading for us, AI is analyzing the news, it's doing the fundamental analysis, and it's making a trade, placing stop loss orders and take profit orders accordingly, then you won't make any money, and no one else will. That's the ultimate facet of it. So trading is a very interesting thing, because successful trading relies on someone else losing money. Same with Bitcoin, and people don't really understand that. And so behind every successful trade, there are the equivalent in unsuccessful trades. And so I again think that with the rise of AI, something like trading, I don't know, I think it will become less common, because trading relies on that sort of unpredictability, and it's a competition between two people, and often it's very psychological.
And there has to be a loser and a winner.
Well, exactly, and if everybody is using AI, then it will even out, and there won't be any profits, there won't be any losses, or just the fees of the broker, of course. So I think the broker wins.
Or the exchange.
Yeah, and this is something people need to understand about Bitcoin. There are no pure winners in Bitcoin. There's always a loss between every gain. And people that lose money on the crypto market don't, sort of out themselves and say, hey, I lost money on Bitcoin, what a total farce. And also they don't have the money to advertise such claims, but people who do win are more frequently shown in your feed because they have money to pay for those advertisements and the free time because they don't work.
And they want to share the good news.
Yeah, and half the time that's where they're earning the money. A lot of these influencers, they're not really earning money on any of their trades. They're earning money from their sponsors, the brokers that are paying for them to be a key opinion leader in their marketing campaign. So I think for anyone watching, I personally don't trade crypto.
Me neither.
I put a long-term investment into Toncoin. Purely because I just believe in where it's going, and I think actually the utility is so much higher than anything else, and I sort of made an investment in Toncoin long term, as you would with sort of shares in a company, but aside from that, I don't speculate on currencies in the short term, and I think there will be that issue with AI quickening fundamental and technical analysis and making trades and sort of evening out the trading sphere. So
I kind of want to add to that, because while you mentioned that you made an investment to Toncoin, kind reminder, none of the following should be taken as investment advice. Yeah. On our previous entry with Nick Avramov from Symbiosis Group, by the way, it must be your very new colleague.
Oh wait, you had Kolya on the stream.
Yeah, we had Nick on the podcast. He's going to be he was in the previous entry. But just to mention, we talked about this previously, and I kind of want to know your opinion on it, because I said that anything Ton, and obviously Telegram, it's kind of becoming this super app because it has mini apps, it has a wallet, and it's going to have a lot more to it. For instance, when it came out, you didn't have channels. You didn't have the ability to create a channel, to lead that channel, and to post content on it. But it actually became a very good space because I noticed for myself that I started using Telegram more and more than anything else. Because if I want to look at some memes, like just kind of chill out and look at some news, I'm going to do that on Telegram. Looking at memes, do that on Telegram. Chatting, Telegram again, and I have all these folders that I have separate for everything else that I use.
Yeah.
So, what do you think is going to be the next big adaptation of blockchain technology into that Telegram super app? Because a wallet is a wallet; it just lets you hold, things and the assets that you own, and mini apps are very. I have to say, mini apps are very underdeveloped. That's just my opinion, but still, it's a very simple kind of process to create a mini app, like a clicker or whatever. But there's a long way to go.
I can say what Ton is right now concerned about. So I think you know about this, but I had a meeting with the president of the foundation, Steve Young, not too long ago. I think it was before the sort of new year. And he basically asked me the question. He said, look, Bradley, how do we get people to use Ton mini apps? Ones that are maybe sort of games or something else. What really draws people to these applications? And obviously it's very important because the price of Ton relies on its utility, right? And the more people that are interacting with smart contracts on Ton, naturally the higher Ton will go because of demand and supply. And so they're really thinking about now sort of, okay, well, if it's integrated into Telegram, what will make people use the cryptocurrency over, say, their initial one? And
can I tell you my example before we get to it? So going back to that episode with Nick again, he mentioned that there has to be a problem that is solved with anything.
Yeah, well, this is a big problem with Web3 is people are just trying to solve things that really aren't problems.
Yeah.
I mean,
a perfect example.
I'm trying to think of some funny examples right now. Maybe White Piper protocol.
Oh yeah.
I'll say
that was a lot of bull.
So there's just for your viewers. There's this blockchain project called Wide Piper, not white paper, Wide Piper as in the piper, and you can Google it. I think it's widepiper.com, and it's one of these projects that you start reading, you think, yep. And then you keep reading, and you start to lose focus, and you're thinking, it's okay, I'll keep reading, I'll understand it in a bit. And then you realize that it's absolute total gibberish that you're reading. It starts off with something like, what was it? The first, liquidity
consensus protocol.
Yeah, the first liquidity consensus. I remember thinking, liquidity consensus. What does that mean? And then it goes on sales packages. Anyway, there's this really vibrant guy called Dima. Basically told me that it's a satire project because so many people, they subscribe to the channels and they start they send them so much marketing stuff. For instance, can you would you like market making? They haven't even seen that it is clearly not a project that needs market making. I mean, and it's this sort of satire for Web3, the fact that they get so many of these inquiries, so many of these investment proposals and things like that from people, and just literally shows how little people understand about the blockchain. And I'll tie this back into the again, widepiper.com. You can search it out. Absolutely, hilarious project. I met the founder at a Ton conference, I think, actually. But linking this back, a lot of people don't understand the blockchain, and it kind of scares them. They see big, crazy words, they don't really understand it, and they leave again. I think
nothing's standardized. Nothing is set in stone as the definite truth for blockchain because it's still very underdeveloped.
Well, the thing is, cryptocurrency can be imagined as like a credit system. I mean, if you imagine any... hang on a minute, I'm trying to think of, what is that film, The Fifth Element, right? If you watch The Fifth Element, you see that would be like the 300 credits or something. They have the currency. It's not cash, it's credits. And if you think about a modern system that integrates these credits, I mean, that's essentially how cryptocurrency works. It's a cashless digital system that's efficient because it relies on consensus, and it's decentralized, which is important for longevity and trust. And I think actually, if you really show people the benefits of cryptocurrency and why it outpaces, vastly our current financial system, I think people will start to use it. Mm-hmm. But it needs a bit of a boost. It needs government intervention. Governments need to start saying to people, look, we're going to release a cryptocurrency. Mm-hmm. It's going to be called a CBDC. This is what a CBDC is. These are the benefits that you get. And people start using it, because people don't really understand. They think, well, if something's not broken, why fix it? But they don't realize that actually, if you want to send money abroad, you have to, go through all of these AML, KYC checks, especially if it's over 10,000 euros. It will be slow, it will be incredibly costly, and there's no guarantee they'll even approve the payment, right? And then if you compare that with crypto, where it's just instant, right there in your bank.
Well, not always. Well,
if you're paying USDT.
Depends on what kind of exchange you're using. Hello, SwapSpace, swapspace.co, link in the description. There are a lot of things to compare here, because you mentioned that these credit systems that are going to be working, it's essentially crypto. And I think that the best thing that will help crypto is worldwide approval. This approval is going to come via education. It's going to come via standardization and setting certain rules in stone about crypto by the government, or having blockchain as a thing in universities also.
This is exactly what I said to Steve when we were speaking about this. Oh. He said no, because when you started using your phone, did you have a book next to you? Did you read the instructions on how your phone worked? No, you just used it.
You figured it out.
Yeah, you figured it out. And that's why Apple was so successful. They monopolized the market because it was just such a simple user interface.
Yeah.
And I think
user experience is also a good thing here.
Yeah, exactly. So when Steve asked me, I just started thinking, and I thought we just need to make it accessible, easy to use, without explanation. I mean, what's the point really? I have given so many lectures on things like Bitcoin's proof of work, and how NBits changes every 2 weeks, how you have layer 2 scaling solutions, or even things like ordinals and runes using the op return function. And I realized that people that are interested, they don't need to know all this information. In fact, we don't know any of this information about traditional banking system. There are many of these similar terms that we just don't know. And you shouldn't need to know this. Things like cross-chain swaps or atomic swaps, they shouldn't have all this difficult vocabulary. They should literally be just the benefits of using it. This is all you have to do. Just in an iPhone format. People will do it once they know the utility, and once they see other people doing it as well. So it's something that needs to come natively. We can't force it. It starts with regulation, and it ends up with CBDCs.
A friend telling you how to use it because it's cool.
Yeah.
That's like a good example.
You're using Binance, and you've spent an hour getting your KYC and documents ready, and someone else has gone on a decentralized fiat on ramp, swapped their Ethereum for BNB, and actually increased the value of that BNB in the process because they found a good. They've sort of benefited from arbitrage in the process. And meanwhile, this guy's hemorrhaging money on Binance's trading fees or spot fees or gas that's unpredictable. I mean, there's so many things.
Just you saying that last sentence that you said is probably going to give a whirlwind in the brains of people that don't understand it. And the example that you said at first, that was like a good disclaimer, because it needs to come natively, and it will come natively to all the people that are probably listening to this podcast, because they realize you can't just learn everything about crypto. I mean, you can't. I still have a lot of difficult times understanding certain projects, and one truth that I laid down for myself was, if the team is anonymous, it's probably a scam project. So I had to cut corners in a lot of this, because it's just ever changing, evolving rapidly, and there are a lot of things that are happening in this industry. Like, for instance, you had a very meteoric rise for Bitcoin because of the approval of Donald Trump and all of the promises that he made for Bitcoin, up to about $107,000. But now it's down to $94,000. And people are asking questions like, well, why is it going down? What's happening?
Well, no, I mean,
there are like a billion reasons there.
Well, Bitcoin.
I mean, everything else with Bitcoin also goes down, as we mentioned in the start of the podcast.
No, not necessarily.
All
It's a bit more complicated than that. The problem with Bitcoin is it's supported by speculative traders. That's it. And people, they think crypto, they think Bitcoin because it's the most populous. They buy Bitcoin without any understanding of the crypto market, and that is what's supporting Bitcoin. As these
like a pyramid scheme.
Well, yeah, and then you have institutional investors also that don't, can't see the wood from the trees. And investing in Bitcoin just because their customers or sort of their shareholders want them to invest in Bitcoin to diversify their portfolio. They don't really realize it's a junk asset. It is. I could talk all day about why I don't like Bitcoin. But as you were saying about the knowing everything about crypto, I mean, I also arrived to that conclusion when I realized that I cannot write a decentralized exchange in PHP. I cannot,
It's probably more complicated than that.
Well, I can, for instance, assemble the components of a crypto wallet. Well, actually, I could, but the point is, you always need someone else to support you. Everyone has a certain niche that they understand, and I think you make things through collaborative work and through discussions such as these. I don't think any single one person can know everything there is to know about a single industry. You're always complemented by someone, which is why you have PhDs that are done in very, very niche subjects.
That's true.
Yeah, so I don't know everything about the blockchain.
It's someone that arrives at this conclusion when they start learning more and more about the thing they want to learn about. For instance, physics. Well, like you go into physics, you spend 10,000 hours teaching physics, and you realize that, I found out everything that there is to know about physics. But then there's things like quantum physics, which is like a whole new realm of things that are just going to be, that are going to require hundreds of years to research on that. And this is the funny thing, because a lot of the people that are working on crypto right now, they were born before it was actually was introduced.
Well, this is the crazy thing, because of the sort of learning curve and the fact that you can't really, well, put it this way, your competency to learn after the age of say 27 or something, it goes downhill quite rapidly. And
I gotta say,
the interesting thing is, Bitcoin and crypto came out in 2009, and I'm witnessing a lot of younger people in the industry that are really experts in their fields. You look, for instance, on Forbes 30 under 30, and a lot of them are to do with crypto. And
I disagree. Well, they're more or less our peers, like 25, 27. I have never seen anyone who's under the age of 20 very fluent in crypto.
No. But this is what I'm talking about. People that maybe got into crypto, around 2014, 2015, maybe QuantKid, and are sort of now working professionals because. That's true. Look, the point is, I think you don't need to know half of it to realize the benefits. And I think brands need to tone down their messaging campaigns and just focus on things like, hey, come do a cross-chain swap.
What's a cross-chain swap?
You should know.
I mean, a general question to the public, like, do they know what a cross-chain swap is?
No, absolutely they don't.
Yeah,
only DeFi, what's the word? Degens. Only DeFi degens know sort of what it is and the intricacies, because, ultimately the solutions are marketed to those people, not to the general public. If you want to, advertise something like that to the general public, you don't, first of all, you advertise it to centralized crypto exchange users, like people that use Binance, and say, hey, the world of DeFi is actually less complex than you think, and you explain things in a better way, and you create video tutorials and things, and without explaining all these useless things, like for instance the crypto whiteboard channel. I've always thought about this, like, why do people need to know how consensus mechanism works? Why do they need to know the differences between delegated proof of stake?
Why do I have to know the technical details of how my banking app works?
Well, yeah, exactly.
Because I use it either way.
And this is the problem with crypto, is everyone's sort of trying to prove that they're more intelligent than each other by, pasting all of this kind of useless information to the general public, when we should really just be showing rather than telling.
Yeah, and giving utility at that. All right. So I think that is going to be close to the wrap. I do want to ask you one last question before we go. I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation, but I think I'm going to enjoy it even more after I get another answer from you.
Cool.
And that is, what would you say is going to be the biggest help in Web3 adoption?
The biggest help? CBDCs, man.
CBDCs.
Yeah, you got to have a government. You got to have a government. Not China. You have to have
I wasn't about to mention China, but is that recent?
El Salvador. You need a European economy, right? You need a strong, stable European economy to release a CBDC, integrate it into their financial system, and phase out things like cash, and have a roadmap to do so, for people to start taking it seriously. Regulation, people don't know about regulation, but when they see it, like not El Salvador, like I say, people, you can't go to El Salvador, or even the Congo, who legalized Bitcoin for 1 minute or something like that. Like, you can't go to these almost whimsical economies and take them seriously. You need someone like France or the United Kingdom to release a CBDC.
Yeah, because that gives credibility.
Yeah, and suddenly you're going to get a lot of people taking it seriously, and I think that is when people are going to start using these things. They're going to see the benefits of it in the process, and I think that's how you get mass adoption. And also, messaging is a key component, because not only do you need to convert people that aren't using cryptocurrency to people that are using cryptocurrency, but you should convert people that are using centralized exchanges to those that are using decentralized options too, because
giving them
those
utility.
also have the true benefits. But again, there will be a balance.
I don't know, man. Seems kind of cheesy. Is that recency bias talking in you because you're working on the CBDC yourself for a Latvian government? For the Latvian government?
Well, we'll see.
Well, I do wish you all the best luck.
Thanks again,
in your endeavor there. And that is going to be a wrap. I gotta say a very big thank you to Bradley Peak. Check him out on his
LinkedIn.
Okay.
LinkedIn, that's all I have.
Yeah, you deleted all your socials almost. And
ages ago. It's after SumSub, because everyone started following me and asking me for cybersecurity advice. So
suffering from success. I get it. It's about to be the same for me too here again. That being said, I do got to say that I, again, enjoyed this conversation a lot. And thank you very much for coming to the podcast. Hopefully this is not the last time. There's probably going to be a lot of news that we can uncover later on down the road. And take care, everyone. Stay safe. And if there is a lesson to be learned here from this podcast, is the fact that you got to take it easy, have your own learning curve, and not try to dig in that deep into crypto, because it's going to fill your head with all these whirlpools of slop, as we mentioned. But take care and see you next time.